Morning, everyone. Welcome to Township of North Frontenac's regular council meeting for Friday, February the 27th. I'd like to begin by reading a notice about recorded meetings. Please be advised, North Frontenac council meetings are recorded. By attending a public meeting of council, you are consenting to your image, voice, and comments being recorded. Members of council, staff, delegates, and attendees are advised that they may be subject to legal action if their actions result in inappropriate and or unacceptable behavior or comments. We begin this gathering by acknowledging and celebrating these traditional lands as a gathering place of the first peoples and their ancestors who are entrusted to care for Mother Earth since time immemorial. We do so respecting both the land and the indigenous people who continue to walk with us through this world. Today, the Township of North Frontenac is committed to working with indigenous peoples and all residents to pursue a united path of reconciliation. Okay. We have a new council member, or about to have a new council member. So the oath of office, that's you.
Okay, don't need to read this. Yeah. I, Mike Hage, having been appointed to the office of councillor in the municipality township of North Frontenac, do solemnly promise and declare that 1, I will truly, faithfully, and impartially exercise this office to the best of my knowledge and ability. I have not received and will not receive any payment or reward or promise thereof for the exercise of this office in a biased, corrupt, or any improper manner. I will disclose any pecuniary interest, direct or indirect, in accordance with the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act. I will be faithful and bear true all allegiance to His Majesty King Charles III. I make this solemn promise and declaration conscientiously believing it to be true and knowing that it is of the same force and effect as if made under oath. Thank you.
Congratulations and welcome to the Council of Township of North Frontenac.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
And did you bring donuts?
Next time, I will have Nawar cook some.
Item 4, approval of the agenda.
Moved by Councillor Hermer, seconded by Deputy Mayor Hudel. Be it resolved that council approves the agenda dated February 27th, 2026 as circulated.
Comments? Seeing none, I'd like to object to the inclusion of item 12C, the Alto resolution. The reason for it is we had a long discussion. Starts at 1 hour and 32 minutes. It goes to 1 hour and 47 minutes at our last meeting. And that's the video. And everything that's in this proposed resolution is already included during our discussion. I view this as a motion of reconsideration. So if Councillor Ingalls wants to bring it back, then he should bring it back as a notice of motion on our next meeting. We'll vote on it whether we want to discuss it, and the meeting after that we can discuss it. That's what I like, but if it depends on what council wants to do. If you want to leave it in, then I think we should have, when that item comes up, we should have an amendment or a motion to suspend the procedural bylaw for that particular item. Councillor Inglis.
I believe it's not a notice of reconsideration. It acknowledges specifically in the body of the report that we already passed a resolution saying we did not approve of also running a Frontenac. What it does is that it adds new proposals that I've not heard mentioned anywhere else in discussion about specific considerations that we would like to see if it comes to North Frontenac. My understanding is that there is a public input, but that a choice will be made ultimately, and we will have very little input about that choice. What we will have some effect on and input into, I think, is conditions that we might impose if it comes to North Frontenac. So I feel this is a new motion asking that these considerations be made public and that we state that these considerations are important to us. And it builds on the previous resolution.
Anybody else have any opinions on this? Councillor Herman?
Well, I think as a small rural municipality, our input is gonna be thrown in file 13 quite easily.
Anyone else? So in order for my suggestion to take effect, I need someone to make a motion and to second that to amend the agenda. Seeing none, then the agenda stands as is. Okay. Brooke, was there another item you wanted to, we should take out or? You want to talk about?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, if you want to do it at this point, item B1, I would like to ask to defer until the council meeting, due to some new information coming up regarding the Pioneer Cemetery. And gonna further work with the group prior to any decision being considered by them.
Okay, can I have a motion to that effect? Councillor Hermer, seconder. Councillor Good, in favor of deleting that item? Carried. Okay. Cool. Okay. Let's get on to, so the approval of the agenda as amended. In favor? Opposed? Carried. Disclosure of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof. Have any? Seeing none. We have no business profile. We have no presentations. We have a delegation from Lindsay Nash, Outreach and Stewardship Coordinator for Quinte Conservation Authority, about the Green Municipal Fund and growing Canada's community canopies. So Lindsay is on electronic?
Yeah.
Connection?
Lindsay, did you want to share your screen with the presentation or would you like me to bring the presentation out?
If I could share my screen, that'd be great. It does say host disabled attendee screen sharing. Is that possible?
Should be okay now. Settings around here. Oh. Okay, you should be all set now.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Hello, my name is Lindsay Nash. I am the Outreach and Stewardship Coordinator at Quinte Conservation. I'm here today to talk to you about Quinte Conservation proposing to obtain council support to apply for the lead as the Green Municipal Fund Growing Canada's Community Canopies Fund. I'm going to refer to that as the GMF Fund moving forward. So Quinte Conservation, alongside the Quinte Urban Forest Network, are proposing to be the lead applicant for the GMF Fund. This provides our 18 member municipalities the option to leverage funding and Quinte Conservation staff support, in planting projects, both existing and proposed, and as long as the trees are not already planted by the time we get the funds. As a lead, Quinte Conservation will focus on planting native species and a diverse range of native species. So there's a wide range of eligible projects that could be included in this fund as long as they have permanent long-term forestry intention. And that could include street tree planting, urban planting, park tree planting, riparian planting, forest restoration, and reforestation on both public or private lands, as long as it's somewhere near where people have settled. It can't be totally out in the middle of nowhere. So projects that are not eligible for this fund would be projects that transition natural healthy wetlands and grassland ecosystems, because they're already functioning healthy ecosystems on their own. They wouldn't necessarily benefit from being transitioned into forestry. Therefore, we're looking at historically disturbed lands. And a maintenance plan and survival assessment report are required following each project. So my timeline for this project is to go to each of our member municipalities now in February to obtain council support to apply as lead for this grant. Now, even if you don't want to engage your municipal tree planting programs, by providing a letter of support today, it opens up the funding for Quinte Conservation to work with private groups within your municipality. So for example, if you have any stewardship councils or lake associations, schools, churches, any of those groups that may have tree planting projects planned for 2026 or 2027, we could partner with those groups ourselves as long as we have that letter of support. So in March, I'm going to put a call to the public and municipalities to respond with project participation and a general project outline of how they would like to partner with us for this grant. We're aiming for the end of April to formally apply for the fund with a professionally reviewed planting plan and an urban forestry grant coach, which is provided by the fund. After submitting our application, there's about a 6 to 8 month waiting period, which would put us at planting for fall of 2026 or spring of 2027. And then after receiving the funding, we have a period of 2 years to plant the trees. And then after that, we have a 1 year obligation to maintain and monitor the planted trees. So Quinte Conservation's expectations in working with municipal partners and private interest groups include a letter of support from council, which is what I'm seeking today, a financial contribution of 50%. I'm going to get into that in a moment. A tree planting budget with the source of funding identified, the identification of existing and proposed programs. So basically how you think your municipality or private interest groups would fit into this fund. And then if possible, if you have any information where you have identified sites where an increase in tree canopy would be beneficial, either on private or public lands, and any data or tree canopy studies to support or identify the need for trees. These 2 points are not required, but would be beneficial when we go to apply for the grant. It would only make our application stronger. And in exchange, Quinte Conservation will coordinate administrative and logistical aspects of the application, which is quite often a barrier, like a time barrier for many municipal staff. We will assist with leveraging additional funding where possible. And we will act as a liaison between municipalities, local interest groups, and the funders, and Quinte Conservation will submit the final reporting. So this grant is a 50% match cost share program, and it has a minimum project cost of $50,000. So I realize most of our member municipalities don't have a $50,000 tree planting budget. So by having each of our 18 municipalities plus our local interest groups and private landowners who are interested in tree planting, by working together collectively, we can meet that $50,000 threshold together. And when I spoke with the grantors, they did want me to let you know that there is a maximum of $10 million for your municipality as a project cap. So half of the budget it would be covered for your tree planting projects would be covered by the GMF fund, and the other half could come from either your municipal budgets, private interest groups, so like those schools, churches, scouts, stewardship councils, lake associations. It could come from fundraising, or it could be stacked with other grants. Now, the thing is, the other grants can't be funded by the 2 Billion Trees program because that's how this grant gets their funding. So you can't match with the same grant. And then a Tree Canada grant, we would have to double check because sometimes they're funded by 2 Billion Trees, sometimes they're not. So we would just have to look into that a little further. So what we can do and what our intention is to increase your existing municipal tree planting budget. So if your tree planting budget for 2026 is $5,000, I'm not looking for you to put in additional funding. I'm looking to double it to $10,000. So the intention is increasing municipal tree planting budgets, not replacing them. Or necessarily coming up with anything new if that's something that your municipal staff isn't interested in. And then this grant can also not be part of any legal tree planting requirements. So if you have a bylaw that says if you cut down so many trees, you have to plant so many trees, like as part of a development agreement or anything like that, that would not be eligible for this grant because that's something that they would have had to do anyway. So by implementing a watershed-wide tree planting initiative through different levels of partnership, it creates capacity for our communities to work together while supporting climate resilience close to home. There are many benefits of planting trees, including climate resiliency through flood retention, which is what we're all about at Quinte Conservation. Trees reduce carbon dioxide from the air and produce oxygen, which is good for our physical health. Trees reduce heat island effects in urban areas by cooling buildings in the summer with shade and providing a windbreak in the winter. Connecting with nature improves our mental health, and having a diverse range of native tree species promotes healthy soils and a habitat for a wide range of insects, birds, and mammals that are specific to our area. So this aligns with Quinte Conservation's vision to advance watershed knowledge to strengthen our natural ecosystems. And this is my contact information if anyone wants to reach out. And if you have any questions, please let me know.
Thank you for your presentation. Council, have any questions? Councilor Inglis.
Lindsay, we do not have a municipal tree planting budget, zero. When I look out the window here, all I see is trees already. You're aware that, for example, North Frontenac is about 2/3 Crown land, and Crown land tree planting is covered by the National Atlantic Forest Association Corporation. So 2/3 of our land is already under a tree planting program through private contractors. The remaining 1/3 of our land is mostly forested, and some of that private land is under forest management plans. You've got a really hard sell here, I would say.
Thank you. I do realize that your municipality has a lot of trees already, but as one of our member municipalities, I did want to come and give you guys the option to provide a letter of support, at least for local groups or private landowners to partner with us if they would like to.
Anyone else? Councilor Hoodle? Deputy Mayor Hoodle, sorry.
Thank you, Lindsay, for your presentation. I don't see a problem with giving a letter of support, but are you aware that the MVCA already has a tree planting program in North Frontenac?
Not specifically, but I did come with the knowledge that you already have a lot of trees in your municipality and in your area. So I did realize it would probably be a hard sell.
Councilor Hage.
Thank you, Lindsay, for the presentation. Question, has this been done before in the past, couple of few years or whatever? And what was the rate of success with municipalities and with the program?
We haven't done it here at Quinny Conservation. I know other municipalities have gone for this grant. But a lot of our member municipalities, not all, but most wouldn't be able to meet that $50,000 threshold on their own. So that's why we are pursuing that collectively as a group. So we haven't gone for this before.
Mr. Good.
Yeah, and another thing is we've only got likely 98% is Mississippi watershed here, not Quinty. There's just a small corner over on the west side that's Quinty watershed at all.
So I'm open to partnering with other conservation authorities, neighboring conservation authorities, as long as the other conservation authorities are on board.
Councilor Inglis.
Could I suggest that Roy, as the chair of the MPA board, ask MVs, I mean, this is available money from the Green Municipal Fund, which is a large fund administered by the Federation of Canadian Municipalities. It's probably a once-off opportunity for Quincy. I don't see any problem with writing a letter of support, asking MPCA to get behind it, but I don't see a financial contribution.
Councilor Hermer, what's your opinion?
Well, I agree with what's being said. I don't see where we would benefit too much from a financial input. We'd pay for something that we already have in existence.
It's not in the budget either. Councilor Hage. You had to do this. Would you vote for this letter of support, yes or no? And then financial contribution, yes or no?
Letter of support, I have no problem as long as there's no implication, because as I've learned today, we don't have the budget for that, and definitely won't need any additional financial implication.
Thank you. Councilor Good.
Same.
Okay. So we should change this resolution. Take the financial contribution off the end of the resolution. So when we read it, that would be an amendment, right? You have to read the original resolution first. No? Go ahead.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Hudel, second by Councillor Hermer. Be it resolved that council receives for information the presentation from Lindsay Nash, Outreach and Stewardship Coordinator, Quinty Conservation, and thanks her for her time spent today. The council supports Quinty Conservation's application for the Green Municipal Fund, Growing Canada's Community Canopies for existing and proposed planting projects with a focus on planting a diverse range of native trees and shrub species for long-term permanent forestry intentions. The council instructs the clerk to write a letter of support from North Frontenac Township to aid in Quinty Conservation's application to the GMF.
Any final comments? In favor of the resolution as read? Resolution's carried. Thank you, Lindsay. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
That takes us to item 8B, presentation from Donald Morton Jr. Proposed definition update to zoning bylaw 5519, tiny homes and tiny homes on wheels. Donald, we'll set you up here and give you the floor. You have to turn the mic on.
Morning, everybody. I think I know what you.
It'll just be 1 minute.
Okay. Before we get started here, I guess, thank you for having me this morning. This presentation is very simple. I'm not here to sell anything. I do plan on making a presentation to the HATF on a tiny house idea for Plevna specifically. I'm not going to get into that today, basically because I'm having trouble putting that presentation together because of this issue. I don't feel confident approaching the HATF knowing that people have experienced in this township difficulties setting up tiny houses on wheels. So that's what I'm here to talk about today, specifically is THOWs and the bylaw that we have, number 5519. This township last year moved in the right direction. We include tiny houses under our bylaws. And in this agenda today, we're addressing the additional residential units. This is all great progress in this township. There's tens of thousands of people who live in these tiny houses all around Canada and hundreds of thousands throughout the world. Tiny houses have been around for a long time, all over the world, way before Canada actually adopted it into its affordable housing initiative. You first saw them start up in Australia, mostly actually, and then they moved to Europe and throughout the Middle East, really. These units, they popped up. They weren't so much trailer parks, but more secluded units, 1 to 2, either rented off of existing landowners, just a section of their land. In this case, that would be an additional residential unit. Yeah, so our bylaws now, they're limiting our tiny houses, whether it's a permanent structure or a THOW or what have you, to about 400 square feet. And that's a lot of space. Personally, I do live in a tiny house. It's 26 feet long, 8 feet wide, about 13 feet tall. It's tall enough to make it under the bridges, basically. I think it's 13.7 feet for the bridges or something like that. But it was built and insured and licensed through the as a trailer. Has a license plate and insurance for that. So it did meet the qualifications for the road. That tiny house, my tiny house, it was built about 6 years ago, but I started talking to my dad about it about 15 years ago, actually. We were living in Port Perry. We explored the whole thing and we decided it was a great idea. He started one, moved to a fifth wheel, and then that didn't really work. So he built this one from scratch, the one I'm living in, from the ground up. It's built like a house. It's not built like a trailer. And that's an important distinction for us to consider. The bylaw we have right now, we run into a lot of trouble when people try and set it up. And I've seen it firsthand in this township with people trying to set up a THOW. Specifically, they were asked to remove the hitch from the unit and remove the wheels. In our bylaw, it does state that we have to remove the wheels. But then we got into a lot of interpretations and confusion where it was demanded that the hitch be removed as well. On that unit, fortunately, I'm referring to, the hitch could be removed easily. On my unit, it's all one piece. It's part of the structure of the unit. It keeps the frame strong. If I cut it off with a welding, it would totally ruin the structure and strength of the whole unit. So today I'm asking for just an amendment to this bylaw, and I think that amendment would allow a lot of clarity with people who are planning to move here. It would open up a lot of options for people. We could advertise it confidently, saying you can move your tiny house here, and we have to abide by the provincial laws, and people would just be more likely to do that. If they have to move here and pick apart their tiny house, that's a serious detriment to their options there. Normally, tiny houses when they're set up around the world. They're put up onto piers. They are anchored down so they don't blow away, basically. They have stairs and a deck included into the unit. These are all basic setups that most trailers and campgrounds have to go through. So I'm not seeing why removing the wheels really helps the situation at all, especially since the township is already seeing difficulties with people and confusion around that and misinterpreted bylaws, depending on like who you talk to. So this again, it would just add clarity to the whole thing. I said before that I'm going to approach the HATF with that presentation. I'm not going to get into it, but with that presentation, it involves the township setting up workable lots with a sewer and a well set up. So that would be part of the permit system that would go with this. So with the Ontario building code, it's a 2-permit system. So you have to actually get a permit to build the unit, then you have to get a permit to place the unit. That 2-permit system actually makes sure the tiny houses are weatherproof 4 seasons, built like a house. Like my tiny house has R20 insulation in the floor. It has proper studs, 2x4s. It's fire rated. It's a house, which is different from a camper. You have foam insulation in the walls. It's only 3 seasons, and you can't live in it in the winter, basically. So we already have all of our bylaw already set up for this. We recognize tiny homes, whether they're permanent structures or even the vows. It's just the problem is we have to do so much more with the vows. We have park models, trailer bylaws, and we have recreational vehicle bylaws. So we already have all the structure for everything that's already in place. We don't need a complete reform of the system. We just need to be more friendly to the vows. One point I was talking with Donnie about was people spend a considerable amount of money on the trailer itself, on the chassis, upwards of about $20,000 sometimes. That is one of the features of the tiny house. And by taking that away, you're essentially gutting the tiny house, the thou for what it is. And I know the point is to make it a permanent structure on the land, but to make it not towable or to be a trailer really. But that sorry, I haven't done presentations in a long time. So this I included this picture here, speaking about the chassis. It begs to ask the question, what's the point if people are spending the money on a chassis? They're going to live there. The plan is to live in this unit, not forever. It's not something people can live in forever. They do plan on upgrading as they grow. So I mentioned the 400 square feet before. Mine is only about 150 square feet, but I do plan on getting another tiny house to double my square footage. And that's known globally as called modular tiny house living, where you can grow your house as you grow, or you can downsize your house as you want to downsize, as you might get older. So I included this picture because, why not just do this? If we're not allowed to chassis in the first place, people would just be building these tiny houses on a platform, towing it in, plopping it down, and that's that. Our government currently has adopted the prefabricated tiny house model. Won't get into it, but basically There's a lot of shares involved with the companies that make these tiny houses, the prefabricated units. They seem to be having a monopoly on that whole thing, and they are completely hijacking the term tiny house to not include chassis, tiny house on wheels. So basically, just to sum it up here, it does say in quotes, and any wheels shall be removed. Again, this is not a complicated ask. It's just asking to be more friendly to the whole movement, really. It's been a movement for a long time with these tiny houses. It's not new. And this directly opposes the whole movement. And then again, I want to rely on staff and council for their expertise and knowledge in this matter. I'm not the planner here. So some of the things that the province says what makes a chassis, a tiny house on wheels, acceptable is it's fixed and anchored to the site. Wheels are off the ground, or at least the majority of the weight. So the weight is on the actual structure. People can get wheel covers if they want, or they can build a skirt around, so it's all covered. Services, again, I was talking about how a well and sewage would be, or a septic would be installed either on the landowner or through the township or affordable housing program, discussed later. So the power of bringing it into the permit system is we have full control over the look, the safety, the fire requirements on the unit. We know exactly how they're built. So if someone already built a unit, they have to come with all the blueprints. They have to prove to our building inspector that it's a safe unit. And if they can't do that, they won't get the permit. That puts all the power and control into the township. And it provides a clear path for people who want to pursue this. So that's basically it. I added a draft wording concept, but it's not my lane really. That's
Thank you, Donald.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Anybody have any questions? Councilor Hermer?
I don't have a question. I just have a comment that maybe Don can clarify. I don't see a significant difference between a tiny home or a part model trailer. Now, I don't think it's a requirement that the tongue and wheels be removed from park model. Is that true? So park model trailers are under the durability code, and they do have to be on piers, and they do cut the tongue off them to be a permanent structure. The trailers themselves can be in a trailer park, can be moved from site to site, but when we put them on a residential lot, they have to be permanent use all seasons.
And that's in our building code.
The permit on the permanent foundation is.
Don, what does it mean to take the wheels off? It's not just to take the wheels off, leave the axle and suspension intact?
So this says it has to be on a foundation. So most times the foundations are cut off, the tongues are cut off, and then they're skirted around so that they look like a permanent home. And which is different from our trailer parks where they keep them on because they might move them from site to site in a trailer process. But in a permanent site, we keep them like a house. And the reason that they come that way is because they come with a CAN standard set up by the province, right? So the CAN standard ULC ratings, they come in the package and delivered to site and then made a permanent building on that residential site.
And my understanding of a tiny home on wheels is that it's on wheels and has a tongue because that's an easier way to get it from the factory to the site than putting on a float.
That's the approval they have from the province to have it that way.
Not so that it could be subsequently moved to another residential lot. So from what I'm hearing from Don, the only real objection that I heard is that taking the hitch off your structure would weaken the frame. But other than that, and that's fixable, I'm having trouble understanding why it's such an important issue for you.
Hey, Mr. Mayor. Um, the issue that I'm having there is it's not mentioned in the bylaw whatsoever anywhere about a hitch. Yet we are talking about hitch removal. But it is mentioned with the wheels that have to be removed. I know personally of situations that happened in Oba. I'll respect their privacy, but they may have complied, but it was been a nightmare and they still have not set up their tiny house how they want. It's cost them a considerable amount meeting the township's building code for that. Again, in that trailer chassis, it was designed for the hitch to be removed. They can bolt on and bolt off. Mine needs to be cut off with a welder. And again, this is not mentioned anywhere in the bylaw. This is up to interpretation. Depends on who you talk to that day or which inspector comes out and their opinions on the matter. So this is just adding clarity and following the province. Nothing special, nothing unique.
Councillor Hage?
Thank you for your presentation. Just to understand, your amendment is to keep the wheels. It has nothing to do with the hitch, but most of the conversation now is revolving about removing the hitch or not. Removing the wheels is just lifting the trailer, removing the wheels, storing them somewhere, and that would satisfy the building inspector. There's nothing in the bylaw that says have to remove the hitch. What I hear from you is that the building inspector is insisting on removing the hitch before proceeding forward with the permit. Is that correct? And based on what is the building inspector insisting on that?
Thank you for the question. I agree. My main issue approaching all of this was the lack of clarity and the fact that it's up for interpretation, and the building inspector has visited my tiny house, has visited the other tiny house, and I'm not saying he made separate choices in both matters, but it was up for interpretation, which caused confusion, which caused frustration among people who are already dealing with the fact that they're living in a tiny house, which is no easy feat in itself.
Okay, so we're kind of straying out 6 ways to Sunday here. So it is part of the Ontario Building Code. And having personal experience, not with a 26-foot long unit, but with a 68-foot long unit, the tires deteriorate and they won't haul them on the road anyway after 3 or 4 years. So you take them off, put them under the trailer, whatever you've got. The hitches, the idea is that the tiny house becomes a permanent dwelling. But I can't justify, or sorry, I can't argue against the Ontario Building Code. So thank you for coming in today. Thank you for telling us your opinion. If we have an opportunity, we'll discuss it and we'll see what happens.
Yep, thank you for having me today. And just to reiterate, I was asking to follow the Ontario Building Code, and the Ontario Building Code does not say anything about removing the wheels whatsoever.
Thank you.
Moved by Councillor Hermer, seconded by Deputy Mayor Hudel. Be resolved that council receives for information a presentation from Donald Morton Jr. regarding a proposed definition update to zoning bylaw 5519, tiny home and tiny homes on wheels, and thanks for his time spent today.
In favor of the resolution? Carried. So that takes us to item 9, adoption of the minutes.
Moved by Councillor Hudel. Moved by Deputy Mayor Hudel, seconded by Councillor Hermer. Be resolved that council adopts the minutes as circulated of a public meeting of council held February 6, 2026, and a regular meeting of council held February 6, 2026.
Comments? In favor? Carried. Item 10A, Caledar Berry Joint Fire Committee, 2026 draft budget. And before we get into, before anybody says anything, Fire Chief Cuddy, by council recommendation or request, was supposed to be here. Our staff overlooked this until I guess, yesterday, and Chief Cuddy apparently has not been able to be scheduled to be here. So this is our fault. Not Chief Cuddy's fault. He actually reminded us.
Moved by Counselor Hermer, seconded by Deputy Mayor Hudel, whereas at the meeting held February 13th, 2026, the Caledonia Joint Fire Committee passed Resolution 626, receiving for information the draft 2026 budget for the Caledonia Fire Department, and approved the budget with the following amendment: to increase contributions to reserves to $250,000. Now therefore be resolved that council receives for information the draft Caledonia Fire Department 2026 budget, and the council approves the budget as approved in principle by the committee. And the council instructs the clerk to provide this resolution to Fire Chief Cuddy, the Township of Addington Highlands Clerk, and the Joint Fire Committee.
Comments? Councilor Inglis.
My memory is short, but I recall you, Mr. Mayor, commenting that here we are trying to pass a budget. We're only guessing at the fire budget. Is that an issue still?
No, because this is the budget.
Did we know this number back in November?
Just under, right? Yeah, we're okay, right?
So we didn't know exactly what the number was. I did an estimate, kind of thinking we were looking at the same kind of increased contributions in 2026, just based on the 10-year plan. And then just an estimate. So I estimated it. What has been presented in the budget is within a few $1,000s of what I estimated. So it's been incorporated into our budget.
So is this a viable process going forward? Where we guess what the upcoming fire budget will be and then possibly put pressure on that committee to stay within our guess? Is this a viable process?
So we have been following this process for quite some time because they do tend to budget after we do. So we've been budgeting earlier and earlier. So this has been the normal process. We have a policy that if the estimate is under, we take it from reserves. If it's over, we put it back into reserve. So I think we have a good process here. I don't think our estimate should put pressure on the committee as a whole. I mean, they have to make a decision on the budget at the table there. We were just had estimated within what they were looking.
Thank you.
Councilor Hermer.
From the last meeting, I understand from the conversation that Addington Highlands is doing a review of their budget timeline to realign more favorably with us.
Yeah, they were asked to look at that, Councilor Hermer. That's a council decision whether or not they want to move their budget forward like we do. So I asked them to bring that to council meeting, I guess, next council.
It's been my pet peeve that we're always behind the 8 ball here. And it is exactly what we are. We're a couple thousand under, which is good. But we could easily go the other way. And we've got some good representatives on that committee, but you never know what's coming down like Councilor Hermer.
Well, the fortunate thing is there's 3 members of their council that were on that committee, and they're in agreement with their discussion about realignment. So that's the majority of their council.
Let's hope that translates to a council meeting. We'll see. Okay. Is there anything else about this particular item you want to discuss? In favor of the resolution? Gary. Okay, so we have item 10B, appointment as the Lakelands Family Health Team representative. We need an appointment. Councilor Regent was that member. I'm going to ask Mike if you'd be kind enough to step up and do it. This is not an onerous presentation or an onerous task or a commitment. Thank you. Every now and then. I think there's only 2 or 3 meetings, maybe 4 between now and the end of the year.
No problem.
Okay. So I'm suggesting we have Mike Hage to do it. Seconded by, I can't make motion. Ready? Get Roy. Who's first?
The motion is moved by Deputy Mayor Hudel and Councilor Hermer.
In favor? Mike? Carried. Thank you, Mike.
You're welcome.
Can I ask a question about this appointment? I'm in favor of it completely, but is it a necessity that the representative be a Ward One counselor? Or is that simply desirable or even worth commenting on?
Let's leave it the last. Unless someone from Ward One wants to comment on it. Wayne, you want to say anything?
Well, I think it's likely a better idea to be Ward One and then you're in the knowledge of what's going on at the center up there. I'd
That
prefer
health
it to be
team
Ward
costs
One.
us a lot of money. That health team costs us a fair amount of money, so it'd be nice to know where we sit and we have a representative there. So,
I'm just trying to recognize the large size and east-west diversity. I don't personally have a lot of contact with the Highway 41 corridor. That's probably true of many local residents.
and vice versa, but it is what it is. I like having a Ward One counselor sit on that. There's nothing in our bylaws that says that we have to, but I think it's a great idea. Okay, so that's, we've done that. Item 10C, Diabetes Canada textile donation bins.
Moved by Counselor Hermer, seconded by Deputy Mayor Hudel. Whereas at the meeting held December 12, 2025, Council received for information an administrative report from the Public Works Manager entitled Diabetes Canada Textile Donation Bins, Plevna and 506 Wayside locations. And whereas Council approved bylaw 2025-61 to enter into a service agreement with Diabetes Canada to provide 2 donation bins at the Wayside location. Now therefore be resolved, the Council receives for information a letter dated February 19th, 2026 from Diabetes Canada advising they are unable to proceed with the proposed locations due to current operational limitations within the region.
Any comments? Yes, Deputy Mayor Hudel.
So Darwin, the textiles now are waste? Or where do they go?
Sorry, Mr. Mayor. The TSO has been looking after that.
So I would advise the public to take them to alternative bins outside of our municipality.
We don't have textile bins anywhere.
No, and we don't accept textiles. We don't accept clothing at the reuse center either.
So they're not waste at our site, is that what you're saying? People can't dump textiles?
No, at the waste sites, they could go in the bulky item bins.
Right.
But I mean, it would obviously encourage people to take them out where there are appropriate facilities for reuse and recycling as opposed to using that service, but they can go in the bulky item bin.
Well, I read the letter from Diabetes Canada. Did they give you any indication why it's just the remoteness of our area? They didn't want service? Yeah.
Okay, in favor of the resolution? Carried. Item 11A, communications, section A.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Hudel, seconded by Councillor Hermer. Be it resolved, the Council receives for information Section A items of the Clerk's administrative report entitled Communications of Interest.
Any comments? In favor? Carried. Item 11B1, Land Lakes Garden Club Cloyne Pioneer Cemetery request has been removed from the agenda. Item B2, MPP John Jordan, motion for rideshare programs provincial regulatory framework.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Hudel, seconded by Councillor Hermer. Be it resolved, the Council receives for information a letter from the Office of MPP John Jordan, Lanark, Frontenac, Kingston, advising MPP Jordan will be presenting a motion to the House of the Provincial Legislature to establish a standardized regulatory framework for rideshare program, and that a rural rideshare program would offer enhanced convenience and flexibility for residents and has the potential to significantly impact regional economic development. The Council supports this proposal as it will provide Ontarians living in rural and northern areas with more transportation choice and freedom, facilitating greater access to employment, education, and healthcare opportunities, therefore presenting a seamless and consistent opportunity for all users regardless of geographic location. And the Council instructs the clerk to provide a letter of support to MPP Jordan.
Comments? Yep. Sorry, Councillor Inglis.
I see one short letter here. What am I supporting?
They're just looking for a letter of support as he writes in the House and tables this. I did provide him my opinions in an email, and then they come back and ask for a letter of support from the township, and I said I couldn't do that, but let them. So
Well,
that's what this is.
you have to trust that he's doing the right thing because it's not described what he's doing. What are we supporting? I don't know. I hate not to support this, but I'm reluctant to support something I have no knowledge of.
Anyone else?
Yeah, on paper, whatever this means. I have to agree with Councilor Andrew. What is this?
I don't know. On paper, it seems like a great idea. I don't know how they would implement it, but I don't know. I
And this
can't defend it.
could be really important. There are probably rules in place that prohibit rideshare programs, but let's defer it.
Well, I have a little bit of an issue with that, and the reason is that MPP Jordan has been really supportive of us. And they don't ask much from us. So here it is, and we're sitting on $1 million plus for Plevna. We have 300,000 for the rink surface in Plevna. Other potential grants. He's worked with us at the county level, and they're asking for a letter of support for a rideshare program. And we're saying, well, let's defer it. Maybe we'll get around to it later. Whatever the council decides, but that's my thought. Councilor Good.
I don't see a reason not to support it. It's just that Ontario should create a streamlined standard provincial regulatory framework for the rideshare program. It's pretty straightforward, I thought.
So you tell me what a rideshare organization is?
Well, in my opinion, it's a organization that gets people to share their cars or whatever vehicles to go to, say, Kingston to the shop or Napanee to shop. And that's what I think it is. I'm not 100% sure. Maybe somebody else has got a different opinion.
I've used Uber in Toronto and other places, and it's really effective. You have an account with a credit card, and you get in the car, and they have all your information, and boom, boom. It may not work in North Frontenac, but it's really just looking at. Thank you for re-emphasizing. It's just to look at a set of regulations. So you have the same regulations. If it would come here, you would have it here. You would have in Ottawa. You would have in Cornwall. You would have in Peterborough or whatever. I don't see this being an onerous thing. Councillor Hage.
I would hate to disagree with you, Mayor, but it would work in North Frontenac. It's working actually under the table nowadays. There are lots of people who work or volunteer to drive residents to Kingston, to the hospital, and to other places. It's happening on voluntary basis and sometimes on paid basis. So if there is a framework to organize it, it will definitely go a long way and make it streamlined and make people more aware that it exists. But it is happening, actually.
There's I think it's community services in Northbrook that drives people to different places. They have the small bus there. Right. So that is part of Redwood. I'm guessing that's a rideshare program, and I think it's free service. I'm not 100% sure.
No, actually, the drivers, I think they get paid by community services, but there are other volunteers who do it voluntary with different other organizations as well. I know of a couple of personal neighbors who drive patients on a regular basis, whether to dialysis or to hospital on a regular basis. So it happens.
Are they doing that through the community services group? Like on the east side of the township, you would get that service through rural Frontenac Community Services. So is the Land of Lakes Community Services doing the same thing?
Yes.
And we're subsidizing that.
Yes, but as I said, yes, that is happening, but also through other organizations or on voluntary basis. But that, I believe, if organized under a certain framework, as John Jordan is proposing, it will be better for everyone, whether insurance, liability, or even awareness that this exists. If it becomes organized through a provincial thing, then it definitely would help more.
Councillor English, you got your hand up.
I was just going to ask for an additional wording. Yeah, we vote on it with the stipulation that we would like to go to detail.
I honestly don't think he has the details yet. I really don't. It's just tabling it in the House, so I don't know. I could be wrong with that, but they weren't forthcoming and I never asked. I just thought in general, it's something we should look at.
Yeah, sorry, Mr. Mayor. I just find it actually funny that something like this comes with no details. So I'll vote for it, but it just seems weird. There's no details.
All right, let's have the vote in favor of this resolution. Carry. Okay, I'd like to take a 5-minute break and then we're going to go to item 12, which is the site plan control policies. Okay, so 10:05, we'll be back here. Welcome back, everyone. Item 12A, Sonia Bolton from the County of Frontenac Planning Department is here. And Sonia, you have to read the resolution first, right? Then Sonia gets involved.
Moved by Councillor Hermer, seconded by Deputy Mayor Hudel. Be it resolved that council receives for information the planning report prepared by Sonia Bolton, Manager of Community Planning with the County of Frontenac, entitled Proposed Official Plan Amendment for Site Plan Control Policy. The council will consider a bylaw later in the meeting to adopt the proposed official plan amendment number 3 to update the site plan control policies in the township official plan. The council directs staff to prepare and send the official plan amendment package to the County of Frontenac for approval. And the council directs staff to draft a new site plan control bylaw in accordance with the updated official plan policies and present the draft at a future council meeting.
Now you have a presentation, right?
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. I don't have a formal presentation. I'm happy to speak to the amendment again and answer any questions, but this was the amendment that was the subject of the public meeting just 3 weeks ago. We've received no additional comments or inquiries since that time, and it's very much administrative in nature. But as I said, happy to answer any questions that members may have.
Any comments, any questions? Councillor Inglis.
Once again, I need reminding about what this entails. I gather it makes the whole township site plan control area, number 1, and number 2, it gives the authority to apply site plan control to the clerk. Is that it exactly?
So, through you, Mr. Mayor. So this, so this is sort of an enabling policy. So it's in your official plan, and what it does is it designates the entire municipality as a site plan control area. And then it gives you as council the authority to pass a site plan control bylaw. And then you lay out within that bylaw the details of what types of development are subject to site plan control, what an applicant has to do when they're submitting an application, the types of things that they have to submit, such as drawings and other technical information. So we'll be bringing a revised draft of that bylaw back to you folks in the near future. It has always been our intent to update it, but when we went to update the bylaw, we found that the official plan needed to be updated. There's been a lot of changes from the province in the last 5 to 6 years. So it's, it was something that we just needed to bring forward. The issue of having to delegate the authority for the approval to a municipal staff employee in the case of your clerk and planning manager, that comes about because of provincial legislation. And then you passed a separate bylaw specifically for that delegation, because unfortunately, because it's actually in provincial legislation, if you didn't delegate it to staff, you don't get to do it. So it is referenced in these policies, but it's because it's a provincial requirement under the Planning Act.
So I asked a question.
Sure.
So the first one is you said we create the bylaw defining site plan control for the whole township. So is that process of definition under the control of this council and the staff? And if so, do we anticipate this creating new restrictions on residential development, for example?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I think the revised bylaw is going to be very similar. Again, your current bylaw also applies to the entire municipality. And then it just lays out the different types of development. It generally applies to non-residential uses, so commercial, industrial, institutional. And then when it applies to residential, it's usually multi-residential. But again, the province has been changing the rules about what you can apply site plan control to. So for instance, many municipalities used to do it when you had in excess of 3 dwelling units on a property. Now it has to be in excess of 10, except unless you're within 120 meters of water or 300 meters of a rail line. So again, we need to make those updates to be consistent with the provincial policy.
Anyone else? Counselor Good?
Yes, so that means that this last paragraph on here is already in our plan control. And where it says building location, design, site layout, pedestrian vehicle access, landscaping, buffering, lighting, servicing, grading, drainage, all that is already in there.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, your current bylaw does meet all the requirements of what's required to be in a site plan control bylaw. It's really some of the provincial changes we need to meet. So the new bylaw, when you see it, won't really be that new. It'll be mostly what's already there with a few tweaks and changes.
That's what I'm asking. Is that part of it already in there like that?
All those requirements are already addressed in your site plan control bylaw and will be in the revised draft as well.
Okay, in favor of the resolution? Anyone opposed? Carried. Okay. Item 12B, proposal official plan amendment permit up to 3 dwelling units in rural and hamlet lots.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Hudel, seconded by Councillor Hermer. Be resolved that council receives for information the plan report prepared by Dimitri Kolovich, Project Manager, Senior Planner with the County of Frontenac, entitled Proposed Official Plan Amendment to permit up to 3 dwelling units on a rural and hamlet lot. And the council approves servicing standards for additional residential units as a standalone technical reference document to be used as terms of reference material for the development of additional residential units. The council will consider a bylaw later in the meeting to adopt the proposed official plan amendment to permit up to 3 residential dwelling units on the lands designated as rural or hamlet, and that council directs staff to prepare and send the official plan amendment package to the County of Frontenac for approval, and that council directs staff to begin the process of amending zoning bylaw number 5519 to include provisions related to additional residential units that comply with the updated official plan policies found in this amendment.
Comments? You have a presentation, first of all, Dimitri?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. That was Deputy Mayor Hudel.
So I'm gonna just state the obvious, rural and hamlet does not include lakefront. So through the mayor, no, it does not include lakefront, but if there are lakefront properties within the hamlet zone, those are outside of the definition of waterfront area under the official plan. So if you wanted us to include a restriction on additional residential units in the hamlet zone, we can do that through the zoning amendment process, but we could look at that later. And then just again, stating the obvious. In your report, you were talking about, there was mention of 1,000 feet back and all that. So if I have a lakefront property and then there's a road behind me and then there's back lots behind that road, that's then considered rural, correct? So under the policies that we've proposed and the zoning provisions that at least I envision, we would apply a standard 150 meter setback to the lake, and it doesn't matter what the designation is. If the intent is to get additional residential units away up to 150 meters from the water.
Councillor Inglis?
So Dimitri, this describes a change in the official plan. The actual zoning bylaw will have all the details, like, so you can have 3 dwellings on a lot in a hamlet or rural area, including limited service rural, I guess. The details of that zoning bylaw, have they yet to be worked out? I'm thinking of things like you've got a lot in a hamlet with a house on it, and this will potentially allow 2 more houses on that lot. So restrictions as to lot size, septic placement, well placement, that'll all be detailed in the zoning bylaw. Is that correct?
Yes, that's mostly correct. So so these policies are really enabling policies that allows the township to adopt or create zoning rules for regulating additional residential units. We've also in your example of standards for setback of septic systems and wells and stuff like that, as part of the policies, we've also created servicing standards that one would have to meet for servicing of these additional residential units. And there's under the zoning regulations, we would propose a certain mechanism in order for us to make sure that we're able to assess those servicing constraints. But those are questions to be answered later through the zoning process, like those little details. That's through the zoning amendment process, which will come after this.
Will the township have a lot of help technically in creating those new zoning details? I'm thinking, for example, of adding 2 houses on a small residential lot and potentially putting in a high performance new technology septic system. Will those details of definition be in this new zoning bylaw?
So no, because a lot of the technical requirements for septic systems are really driven by the building code. So right now you could have a home, say, that has 12 bedrooms with a very large septic system, and those setbacks are the same for a home that's 2 bedrooms with a smaller septic system. So the setbacks for septic systems are really driven by the building code, but the one thing that we would really focus on is the provisions of water, because the building code does not necessarily have good rules associated with the quality and quantity of groundwater, and that's something that we are trying to work through with the standards that we've proposed under the official plan policy. So essentially, if you're adding more residential units, there's certain servicing standards that you're going to have to meet with respect to water before you can construct that dwelling unit as of right. And that really depends on setbacks from adjacent wells and stuff like that.
Councillor Hage.
Dimitri, in your report, there was a mention of at capacity lakes. Is that an ongoing designation? Is that reviewed periodically, or this is just as it is? And
thank you for the question. It's an important one. At capacity lakes are policies that we get from the province for us. At capacity lakes is not something that the county or the township assesses or designates. They're all provincially designated. So those do change from time to time, but it's really driven by the province. I do know there are mechanisms for groups, like you could have groups that look at doing lake capacity studies that meet that provincial criteria and essentially do the work of designating or at least evaluating capacity on lakes on behalf of the province. And I'm sure those can work their way into identifying which lakes are at capacity or not at capacity. But that is ultimately driven by provincial policies and provincial regulations.
Follow up. Would that affect, if the designation of a lake changes in the future, will that affect the proposal or the zoning bylaw? Do you have to review all of that, or that becomes grandfathered and it stays as is?
So through the mayor, we would have to, I believe the zoning bylaw has a list of lakes that are deemed at capacity. So we would have to add, if one is removed from there, as one is added, we would have to add it into the zoning bylaw. But if one, I just don't recall if there is a list of those lakes. We do identify them through our official, through your official plan. So there might be some work, but those status updates aren't really, they don't happen often. They happen from time to time.
Else, Councillor Deputy Mayor Hudel.
Just want to comment. I'm not sure who wrote this, Dimitri or Sonia, but very well written, and for someone who's not a planner, made it easier for me to understand. So thank you. Thank you. That's probably the best compliment that a writer can receive. Thank you.
Well, true. In favor of this resolution? Opposed? Carried. Okay, that brings us to item 12C, council resolution regarding possible alternate train route. And like I said at the beginning of the meeting, I thought this was an inappropriate place for this, but council decided otherwise, so I'm not going to talk about suspending the procedural bylaw for this. So questions, or sorry, resolution.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Hudel, second by Councillor Hermer. Be resolved that council does not wish to host the Alto high-speed train route through the township as stated in the resolution passed at the February 6, 2026 council meeting. However, if a decision is made to traverse North Frontenac due consideration must be given to the area's unique and pristine natural environment by ensuring the following: that the route not cross any lake waters, that wildlife corridors be installed every 500 meters along the route, that all public roads crossing the route be left continuous with an overpass or underpass, that the route stay clear of all lands being considered as a park around Crotch Lake, that interference with existing settlements and other land development be as minimal as possible, that a community benefit payment be made to the township annually amounting to 5% or more of the total tax levy for a period of 30 years or more, and that local businesses be used wherever possible during the construction and operating phases of the project.
Comment. There is an article in this week's Frontenac News called the Frontenac Spur, which is really interesting. Mind you, it's Jeff Green's opinion, or who wrote it. It's an opinion, but it is an excellent article. And if you go back several years, when the original high-speed rail was proposed, it was going to go right through the town of Chevrolet. And they're right against it. It's going to split their town in half. And there's nothing here, but this is not Alta Rail. We've said we don't want it. It is not a good fit for us. It's going to split this township if it comes through here. If you look at the comments on the interactive map, most of them in our area talk about the significant elevation changes, and that is significant, 300-400 feet. So, you know, and if you look also at where Cache Lake is and Big Gull is and Mazenod and Marble, that tends to force, if they're following the same logic, it tends to force the proposed rail line south and probably into Central Frontenac. We still have the same problem, even though it's in a different community, like getting to Highway 7. So, Councilor Inglis, it's your resolution.
Yeah, as I said before, I just think it's worth stating very specific concerns that would result in this community or any community that it went through. These have not been stated before. There's no harm in doing this. It will be publicized to some extent. So I just think it's worth stating, calling a spade a spade. This is what would happen.
And going back to Councilor Hermer's comment, it's just as a federal initiative and they'll do whatever they want. Now, like we say we want 5%, what if they take, what we're going to give you 7? Or are they going to give us 3? You know, I don't think we should be specific. I think that the resolution we had at the last meeting was good enough. We just don't want it, period. This kind of looks like we don't want it, but nudge, nudge, wink, wink. This is what we'll take if you want to put it with us. So I don't want it in any way be seen as giving into the feds on this. Councilor Deputy Mayor Ludy.
So I understand where Councilor Ingles is going here, but I have to agree with the mayor. I don't want any of this coming to North Frontenac, and I think that should be our stance. I don't want to give them any opportunity to say, oh, you want 5%, so we'll, you know, now that I know you want 5%, I'll give you 3%. Maybe they were going to give us 8%. So it's almost like we're negotiating before it happens. So I don't think we should be making this resolution. So you voted last meeting that you don't want part of it, and I think that's fine.
Any other comments? Councilor Inglis.
Well, I stated at the last meeting, I am in favor of this project in general for various reasons. If we state we don't want it here, we're stating we do want it in South or Central Frontenac. I don't find that a particularly wise kind of vote to make. We don't want it, but we want you guys to have it. My view is that this will be imposed on us by the federal government, and that there's no point in saying it should go through Kingston or it should go through South Frontenac. And I don't think by stipulating concerns, we're saying nudge, nudge, wink, wink. We're just stating publicly what would happen. wherever it goes.
Councillor Hermer.
Well, in response to Councillor Inglis, that's what they're telling us. They don't want it there, so it's coming to North Frontenac.
Our resolution was very carefully worded not to point fingers at where it should go. We just said, we don't want it. That's all we said. And the reason we did it was because we didn't want to point fingers. So I take exception to your reasoning on this. Anyway, if any more comments on this, we can call a vote on it. In favor of the resolution? Opposed? Resolution is defeated. Okay, item D, use of corporate resources for election purposes policy.
Moved by Councillor Hermer, seconded by Deputy Mayor Hudel. Be resolved, the council receives for information the clerk planning manager's administrative report entitled Use of Corporate Resources for Election Purposes Policy. And the council will consider a bylaw later in the meeting to adopt a use of corporate resources for election purposes policy.
Any comments? Seeing none, in favor of the resolution? Opposed? Carried. That takes us to E, regulating election signs within the township.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Hudel, seconded by Councillor Hermer. Be resolved, the council receives for information the clerk planning manager's administrative report entitled Regulating Election Signs Within the Township. The council will consider a bylaw later in the meeting to adopt the election sign policy.
Are there any comments? In favor of the resolution? Opposed? Resolution is carried. You have to remember all that stuff when we start doing it. Okay, so item F, amendments to bylaw 6822 to regulate animals in the township of North Frontenac.
Moved by Councillor Hermer, seconded by Deputy Mayor Hudel. Be it resolved, the council receives for information the clerk planning manager's administrative report entitled Amendments to Bylaw 6822 to regulate animals in the township of North Frontenac. And the council will consider a bylaw later in the meeting to adopt the updated animal control bylaw and repeal bylaw 6822.
Comments? In favor? Carried. That will take us to 12G. Director of Emergency Service, Fire Chief, Ministry of Natural Resources, Municipal Fire Forest Fire Management Agreement Extension.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Hudel, seconded by Councillor Hermer. Be resolved, the council receives for information the Director of Emergency Services Fire Chief's administrative report entitled Ministry of Natural Resources Municipal Forest Fire Management Agreement Extension. And the council instructs the Director of Emergency Services Fire Chief to sign the extension agreement for the Municipal Forest Fire Management Agreement with the Ministry of Natural Resources for 2026 to 2031. And the council instructs the clerk to attach a copy of the extension agreement to the current Municipal Forest Fire Management Agreement dated January 18th, 2016, bylaw 1016.
Comments? In favor of the resolution? Opposed? Carried. Item 12H, North Frontenac Parkland Annual Report 2025.
Moved by Councillor Hermer, seconded by Deputy Mayor Hudel. Be resolved, the council receives for information the Manager Community Development's administrative report entitled North Frontenac Parklands Annual Report 2025.
Are there any comments? Deputy Mayor.
First of all, thanks for the report. Very good. Just want to comment on 2025. I see that we're in the negative there. Maybe just explain. I know that you had said a lot of work was done, but just give a little more detail, please.
Sure. Through you, Mr. Mayor. So this year we did see a deficit of just around $10,000. So there's lots of narratives that go into that, but generally it was an increase in our operating costs due to an ambitious year. We did a lot of extra this year and some work around our facility that generally we don't do. That being said, we did have an increase in sales by $20,000. So it shows that the program is still growing and we do have sufficient reserves to cover that deficit.
Any other comments?
Yeah, I think it's a great program and I see that it's growing. How are the reservations so far this year already? Has it started?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, that the reservations are actually at an all-time high. We've never seen reservations in the first 2 hours this high. So every year we keep that first hour or two of bookings when it opens is increasing.
Brooke, do we create new campsites every year, or as it's growing, are we going to need to create more campsites?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So we don't generally create new campsites. We do have a request into the ministry right now to create some more roadside sites. That is a slow process for approval, so that eventually, hopefully, will come to you guys to approve me creating some new campsites. But as of now, it's just maintaining our current ones, and then sometimes, reopening older ones that we've been shut down for rehabilitation, or just working within the sites we have.
And I know at the EDTF meeting, we had talked about possibilities, maybe one day seeing campsites off the KMP Trail. And maybe that's something in the future we're gonna look at.
That's a great idea. I'm sure the county, well, the planners have gone, so that is an interesting idea. I think that would go down well. Yeah, because this trail, when it's finished, will be part of the Eastern Ontario Trail Loop, and you'll be able to go like from Kingston all the way up through Pembroke, from Ottawa, and back down, and so on. And it'll be a 2 or 3 day ride. So, okay. Any other comments? In favor of the resolution? Carried. Okay. Treasurers, 2025 Council Committee Remuneration and Expenses.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Hudel, seconded by Councillor Hermer. Be it resolved, the council receives for information the treasurer's administrative report entitled 2025 Council Committee Remuneration and Expense.
Comments? In favor? Carried. Item 13A, Joint Health and Safety Committee.
Moved by Councillor Hermer, seconded by Deputy Mayor Hudel. Be it resolved, the council receives for information the minutes of a meeting of the Joint Health and Safety Committee dated November 12th, 2025.
Comments? In favor? Carried. 13B, Housing Advisory Task Force.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Hudel, seconded by Councillor Hermer. Be it resolved, the council receives for information the notes of a meeting of the Housing Advisory Task Force held February 11th, 2026.
Comment, questions? In favor? Carried. 13C, Economic Development Task Force.
Moved by Councillor Hermer, seconded by Deputy Mayor Hudel. Be it resolved, the council receives for information the notes of a meeting of the Economic Development Task Force held February 17th, 2026.
Comments? In favor? Carried. Item 13D, Calabar Joint Fire Committee.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Hudel, seconded by Councillor Hermer. Be it resolved, the council receives for information the minutes of the meeting of the Joint Fire Committee held December 19th, 2025.
Comments? In favor? Carried. Item 14, does anyone wish to give notice of motion? Seeing none, we have now motions, written notice which was previously given. Now we go to the verbal reports. Let's see if my iPad will bring this up. Of course, it won't. So, in Chair, can we use your computer? Or yeah, I just need a hard copy, I guess. This is one in the drawer. While she's bringing that up, the first one is the mayor anyway. We handed had a county council meeting, which we approved. This is interesting. We approved $17,500 as a subsidy to put a nurse practitioner on Wolf Island. So if we go down the road for a Northland clinic, I think we can. There's a precedent. We should be asking for a subsidy if we have to do it again. See what happens. They've been advocating for additional medical assistance on the island for so long. It started with an ambulance, but the ambulance goes there with 2 paramedics 7 o'clock in the morning, and by 7:30 the ambulance is off the island and will never return. So why put it there in the first place? So, and that was a $500,000 savings. So that's one of the first things we had to do, we had to vote on as a new counselor at the county. And they've been advocating ever since. So this is the first time they've come back and said, here's a presentation, we're putting our money into it. We'd like some subsidy, and we said, that's a good idea. So I'm looking at it as a precedent. And the county does have money set aside for doctor procurement. I will leave that with you, Wayne. I know you'll bring that up, and that's exactly fine. We have an administration committee which looks after hiring a CAO and so on. I'm the new vice chair for that. I'm also the chair now for the Frontline Municipal Services Corporation. There's still a president above me, and that's Fran Smith from Central Frontenac. We've applied. There's a Rural Ontario Development Grant, which we've been getting for K&P Trail and so on. FMSC may be in line for a grant up to $50,000, but we need letters of support from various municipalities. This would save us $50,000 or a portion of $50,000. So we said, yes, we're going to sign it. So the meeting we have is on Tuesday, and the submission for this had to be on Thursday. And the reason for the tight timeline is that the week before they told us we couldn't apply. FMSC cannot apply, but the county can. So basically, putting everything into the county, and if we get it, the county will then pay FMSC for that. But this is a no cost action class.
What is the $50,000 for?
Yeah. There was, remember, Corey? Had to do with developing forms and standards and whatever else. But they had been in talk with the people who have actually run the grant program, and they said, no, you can't apply. And then they said, well, if you find a workaround, you can do it. So Rural Ontario Development. So, okay, so good question though. Attended I have an emergency management program committee meeting coming up, housing advisory task force meeting coming up, and we have a governance meeting next week at the county level, and they're working on the procedural bylaw there. Hopefully we'll do it. And I have a conference call on Wednesday with MVCA re flood control issues for the 2026 year. So I'm looking forward to that. So, okay, so once we're good, Board one.
Nothing to report, but I do have a question for you. Can we apply for some of that money for doctor recruitment for?
That was the reason I mentioned it. At the precedent.
Perfect.
I don't think that would go by you. That's why I mentioned it. Deputy Mayor Hoodle.
Nothing to report, but just wanted to mention that it's been pretty quiet from the province regarding the conservation authorities. Haven't heard anything from that. See where that goes.
The last I heard was at the EOWC inaugural meeting in the beginning of January, and they said, this is going ahead. We just have no idea what it's going to look like. But that's it. So they are going to amalgamate, but nothing. So, Councillor Hermer,
Nothing to report.
Councillor Fowler's not here. Councillor English
Nothing to report.
and Councillor Hage, we will be asking you the next time. Okay. Thank you very much, everyone. So introduction and reading of bylaws.
Moved by Councillor Good, seconded by Councillor Hage. Be it resolved that leave be given to the mover to introduce the following bylaws that have been circulated to all members of council. Bylaw 2026-13 to adopt a use of corporate resources for elections purposes policy. 2026-14 to adopt an animal control bylaw and establish set fines. 2026-15 to adopt an election signs policy. Bylaw 2026-16 to approve an official plan amendment regarding additional residential unit, and 2026-17 to approve an official plan amendment regarding site plan control policy, and that these bylaws be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed.
Any comments? In favor? Carried. And that brings us to public forums. Anyone, Kelly, do you have anyone online?
So if there's anybody online that wishes to make comment, please use the raise hand feature. Seeing none.
Thank you. Anyone in the council chamber wish to make a comment on any of the agenda items we discussed today? Mr. Morton?
No questions, just a couple comments. I just wanted to point out the Sonia's discussion there. She did mention that we are obligated to bring ourselves up to provincial standards with these ARUs and subsequently tiny houses. On the Alto situation, I have had my finger on the pulse of this for a couple months now. I'm a part of all the Facebook groups about it, all the discussion forums. I've written a couple articles on it now. I haven't gotten into detail in my articles. Simply because there is so much panic going on social media. Everybody is copy pasting these lengthy AI responses and facts and gotchas, and it's chaos online regarding Alto. So much to the point where media can't even get out its articles. They're just flooded and left behind with people's opinions, all fuel panic. So I believe Councillor Inglis had a good point in adding specifics on to that Alto motion, because from what I'm seeing is if people don't have guidance, if they don't have the next step, and in my letter to our MP there, Scott Reed, I even stated, like, what are we doing? It's fine and great to say, oh, I'm opposed to this and it's never coming here. That just fuels the fire. People are panicking. They are thinking that the government's coming in and taking all their land. They're thinking that we're destroying the whole environment around this. There's some communications I got from Alto, forwarded to me from Alto themselves, saying the expropriation corridor is 10 kilometers wide. That was directly from Alto. I questioned it. I know the corridor is only 60 meters wide. But they did say 10 kilometers for the expropriation. I haven't followed up on that. That is something I want to look into. So I do think that we need to be specific. Native communities along the whole corridor are being very aggressive with their negotiations. They're demanding CIPs, they're demanding employment, they're demanding compensation. In my investigations, I've talked with AOO members, the Algonquins of Ontario, and through that, I've discovered that one of the major levers that AOO is using in their negotiations is that they had previously planned for Crotch Lake to be turned into protected lands under the AOO framework. And the Alto train coming up here by Crotch Lake would severely impact their ability to do that. My role as a watchdog journalist is to question, where are we considered in all of that? We use Crotch Lake. It gave us, what, $230,000 last year in revenue from camping, mostly. So I think that's something we really have to consider, is being as aggressive as these Native communities in their negotiations and matching their negotiation strengths. The last thing here, no, that was actually it. I just wanted to add, going through the best situation last year, we were very specific on what we were demanding. The best did come here. And I do believe that had a significant impact on the outcome of that. We demanded certain things and it just didn't become fiscally good for them to pursue it. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else? Okay, seeing none, the next meeting, or sorry, the next item is item 19, closed session.
Moved by Counselor Hage, seconded by Counselor Good. Be it resolved that council retires to closed session at 10:50 a.m. to adopt minutes of a closed meeting held February 6, 2026, to receive a request under the Municipal Freedom of Information Protection and Privacy Act, and for litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board, more specifically, notice of legal proceedings received.
Any comments? In favor? Carried. So we have to ask everybody who's. Welcome back, everyone. We have risen from the closed meeting of council, in which we adopted a closed meeting held February the 6th, 2026, and received a request under the Municipal Freedom of Information Protection and Privacy Act, if the council, board, or commission or other body is the head of the institution for the purposes of that act. So that's confirmatory bylaw.
Moved by Counselor Hage, second by Counselor Good. Be it resolved that bylaw 2026-18 being a bylaw to confirm all actions and proceedings of council for its regular meeting held February 27th, 2026, be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed.
Comments? In favor? Carried. And that brings us to item 22, the adjournment of the meeting.
Moved by Counselor Good, seconded by Counselor Hage. Be resolved that council adjourns the meeting at 11:09 a.m. until March 20th, 2026, or at the call of the chair.
Final comments? In favor? That motion's carried. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you, one and all.